Hello everyone, and welcome to this introduction guide to Simsig Cardiff, and this is the Cardiff simulation that mimics the old power signal box before that was replaced with a new electronic control center. So although this sort of looks like a standard solid state interlocking, it's kind of based on the original panel, so there are a couple of sort of features of this which make it slightly different perhaps than more modern ones. So we're made up here of four main panels, four positions if you like. The first is the east, and this is east towards Newport, which is just there, just off simulation, and I believe this does chain to Newport as well. There's then the west panel, which covers most of Central Station apart from platforms 6 and 7. No idea where platform 5 is, but there you go. And then out towards the exit to Bridgend, and again that chains to the Swansea Simsig because that's the entry point for Swansea. And then the Taff Panel is the third one, so this is really a whole load of branch lines, kind of a bit crazy, we'll go over it in a minute as well. And that connects to the box at Barry at Caddoxton, and then the Valleys control area here and here, as well as there as well. So that's the line to Caerphilly. This line here actually ends up joining up with this line here. So like most of these simulations, these maps are topological, and so it doesn't necessarily lay out in a very sort of geographically accurate way, which can make it quite hard to work out where things are going. But effectively this line here goes towards the northwest of Cardiff, this line goes towards the northeast of Cardiff, and then they sort of circle round, and this one meets the other one there. And then this line sort of goes parallel to this for a fair bit, and then it goes up towards Mid Wales, up towards Caerphilly. We then have the other two platforms here, platform 6 and 7 of Cardiff Central, which are covered on this panel. Now the fact that this actually sits above this area here, so we have a number of different, you see these C, D, E, F, there's an A and B over here and a G. These all link up with various parts of this simulation, which causes a couple of sort of unique control scenarios here, but we'll cover those when we go back through the panels. The fourth panel is not currently shown, and that's because when you start up Cardiff you have an option of a fourth panel that really just covers two level crossings, which are effectively CCTV controlled ones, the sort where you lower it and set a route and clear it when the level crossing's lowered. If you're playing by yourself, honestly, it's not worth a hassle for those two level crossings. It basically exists, I think it's Llantrisant and St Fagans, I think, are the two that are covered by the fourth panel, which would sit down here. When you start it, you can just tell it to disable that panel, and if you do that, then all of these level crossings just become automatic. So definitely worth doing that if you're by yourself, because they're more than enough work to keep you busy. So let's start over here. Now, as with all simulations, it's definitely worth skimming down the instructions on the Simsig website. Go to the documentation, simulation manuals, I think it's the menu entry, and just sort of scan down it. But don't worry, there are a couple of parts of it that are quite hard to understand because they refer to signal numbers or point numbers, and it's not always obvious from here what the point numbers are. So I have the right click menu, so I can see that for instance is 106, but if I was looking for signal like 400, I wouldn't be able to find it on here. What I'd need to do is download the signaling diagram from the website and have a look along there. But then the instructions also refer in a couple of places to point numbers, and the point numbers are not on here as far as I know. You can't get them from here, and they're not on the signaling diagram either, so don't worry if you don't understand absolutely everything on the instructions. But the entry point is here. You have a relief line and a main line. For the most part, all passenger trains come up the main line, even the class 2 trains, but a couple do come on the relief line, and most of the freight trains come in on the relief line, but they leave, if you're going up towards London, they leave in both lines. So as trains come in, definitely worth, not sure I've got any freight ones here at the minute, definitely worth clicking on them and actually finding out what line they take out of Cardiff Central. You know, partly that's realism, but partly also it's going to help with timings and paths. So if you just sort of throw a freight train down the relief just because that seems like the right thing to do, of course that could end up blocking a train coming behind it, especially if the train that you sent was booked to stop somewhere. So you get the normal sort of advance notice here, and you've got a number of automatic signals, so you don't really need to do anything until you get to Wentlug. And Wentlug is a Freightliner terminal, so some trains, as you notice here, they can only come down on the relief line to go into Wentlug, and you know, if they came in the main, they wouldn't be able to get across, so they shouldn't be sent along the main lines. But if they do, the fact is you get enough time here. As soon as it appears, as soon as you see the message saying, you know, something has arrived at you know, Ebba Junction from Newport, have a quick look, click on it. If it's going into Wentlug, then I immediately cancel off that signal. And then otherwise sending a train into is fairly straightforward. There are only two places you can call on your telephone. One of them is Wentlug and the other one is Tidal Sidings. So you call Wentlug, you ask them permission to send a train. They're pretty much going to say yes. After a few seconds, that roundel there, which is the slot roundel, will go white, and then you can just signal the train in to that exit signal, and that's it. It's all done and dusted. Trains can exit Wentlug, however, in both directions, so they only enter from this direction, from down. If they were coming this way, they would need to reverse at signal 602 to go in, but otherwise they could come out either end, and when you get the telephone call, obviously they will tell you waiting to enter at Wentlug West or Wentlug East, and you'd obviously just set the signals accordingly, so nothing particularly difficult there. But one thing to mention at this point is, because this mimics the old power box, a couple of things worth noting. First of all, these signals will only show red or green. So green, it refers to green, yellow, double yellow, and red refers to red, and that's simply because in the old power boxes they didn't indicate all of the different aspects all of the time. They would just say it's either stop or it's proceed, and so that's what you see on here. So sometimes you can see a train looks like it's got sort of three greens in front of it, but the fact is that might be a double yellow, a yellow, or you know, maybe two greens is a double yellow, yellow, and the next one's red. So just be aware of that, because as a train approaches here, these signals here can't be set to auto. So every time a train comes in, if you haven't got your eye on it, which is a lot of times when it's really, really busy and you've got messages coming through, you know, 10 a second about this, that and the other, you can miss a train arriving on the down main, in which case it can end up stopped here quite quickly. So, you know, just remember that you're going to have to set those. However, lots of these other groups of signals here can be set to auto with these buttons. And all that means is they behave like automatic signals, so you don't need to reset the route on these. If the auto button's pressed, you can see the signal post is lit up white, which means the route's set and it's ready to go. So you can see that one's signal 100. That's what we got here, 98. That's already auto anyway. So you see 94, 96, 98. So that will be that one, 94, 96, and 98. Can be autoed using that button, and again I'd leave that on most of the time. Even with that button pressed, you can still cancel down the route if you need to send a train into Wentlug, but otherwise leave them on auto most of the time. It's not a problem. The volume of trains into here and into here is relatively low compared to the through trains, so don't worry too much about that. The next fun bit is tidal sidings. Now it's not massively different from Wentlug. This is obviously a port sidings, so sending a train there is kind of the same deal. You call them up and you ask for permission. When the roundel goes solid white, you can then signal the train to this exit signal here. But it's definitely worth being careful where you set the train, where you bring the train to a stand, because of course there could be trains coming out of here, and some of the trains have a loco run round, so you just need to be thinking about stuff like that. So I tend to put trains coming this way into number 2 or number 3 at the top, so they're out of the way, and then I'll leave them there until I get the slot. You should get it straight away, but worth, you know, not setting a route through to here until you know you've got the slot, because if you don't get given it and then a train needs to come and run the loco around, you're not going to be able to do it because you're going to run out of space. So use the reception sidings here. You can get to all of them from both directions, from here across the crossover, or from the main and from the relief. So you can see you've got the old, whatever they used to call them, the stairway to heaven crossovers. So that's that. And in terms of running a loco round, it is kind of a couple of different ways you can do it depending on where the train's brought to a stand. But if you have a train coming out of here, then if you bring it out, depending on how long it is, you might need to bring it all the way to signal 237. And if you do, when you detach the loco, you're going to have to run to the limit of shunt board here, and then back along the down line to here, and then up into the loop. You only need to signal it as far as signal 618, because it will actually stop here at 681, ready to reverse back onto the train again. It's fairly straightforward. If you've done it before, I think you'll be able to work it out, so don't worry too much. Don't worry about the cripple siding. It says in the instructions that it would be operated in real life by hand points, so I assume that means that there won't be any booked trains to go into cripple siding. That's just for busted wagons and stuff. That's why it's called the cripple siding. There are also a couple of other features on here. I don't know if it doesn't work while I'm paused. Let me just unpause. I'm just going to slow it right down, because otherwise it's going to go wrong very quickly. You see that if I bring up oh, sorry, it's not unpaused. Okay, pause it again. By pressing that button, you're actually showing the interlocking boundaries. So you can see these boundaries here. Now, mostly you're not really going to care about those, but some of the interlocking sections have this, which is basically a global reset button. I don't really know why you only have them in some sections and not others. I expect it's anywhere where stuff can go badly wrong. And effectively, if you hit that red roundel, all of the signals in that interlocking area will go back to danger. So it's just basically a very brute force emergency stop. I guess if you had a runaway freight train or something, you might do something like that, but you're never going to need to use it, hopefully, in in Simsig, but it is there on the real panel. You can see, like I say, there are some for certain interlockings, but you can see here that there isn't one for here. And if you want to then turn it off again, all you do is you right click it, but because I'm paused, don't pause again, that goes off again. Left click to turn it on, right click, and then that is the I think it's called global replacement control. Replace all the signals to red. And now I've broken that. So long dyke is just a ground frame and a siding. I don't know, there might be one train a day that uses that. All of the normal ground frame sort of stuff applies. So you go here, show lever frames, long dyke down, there it is, all the usual stuff. The instructions will tell you exactly what to do. So these tend to try and mimic a real scenario. So the real scenario might have been that you had to have a key from the signalman to go there to unlock the ground frame. So if it's a physical action, they tend to be mimicked by these little check boxes, whereas levers on the frame are replicated by these. And you can see usually you have a facing point lock, the point itself, and then a slot or a signal. So you can find out the instructions for those if you need to. The east panel isn't particularly difficult, so you can sort of run this panel yourself in addition to the west panel, because pretty much the stuff comes straight through. And then this is the first bit you have to be a little bit careful of. Is train 1V91 going into platform 4, which is up the top here. But note, if you bring that to signal 14, it cannot get onto platform 4 from signal 14. So if it's for platform 4 and it's coming down the main, it needs to go onto the down relief here at this crossover so it can get to platform 4. Like most of the simulations, you can put it into the wrong platform, it would still work, but you would lose points for putting it on the wrong platform. And so there's that to consider. This does get very jammed at certain times, so just be aware of that. It can get very busy. One of the things that's quite cool about this, though, is that the passenger trains pretty much all stop at Cardiff, so these main lines don't tend to get used except for freights. So sometimes you might have a freight train that needs to come up onto the relief line here, but you've got sort of a few passenger trains waiting to leave. So you can often signal the freight trains all the way up here on the down main or the up main, and they'll just sit there at the signal. These crossovers here have a very low speed limit. I think it's like 10 miles an hour here and 15 here. So if you're sending a freight train through, don't do that thing where you think, oh, I'll quickly throw it through really quickly, 2 minutes before a train's about to leave, because it might take longer than you expect to go through. But otherwise, this mostly works the same way as you would expect. Most of the platforms can take 2 or 3 or 4 trains. So you can see here already that these 2 trains are stacked up. If you put 1W12 into platform 2 behind 2C71, you'll see the code will automatically just go there, and it will work correctly. When I send this one away here, that code will go out with the train, leaving 1 Whiskey 12 there on its Todd. So that's all good stuff. And the other thing that you need to do a lot from the station is, you'll see here 5F11, you'll see it's timetabled for a stop at the West Junction, and then it comes back into Cardiff Central to platform 2. Now the reason is here is that platform 3 is the only platform that actually can go up on the relief or the main. Platform 1 can, platform 2 can't. So what it looks like, platform 2 could do that. Platform 2 can't do that. It can only go across, whereas platform 1 crosses platform 2. And you say, well, why is it drawn like that? And apparently it's because on the original panel it was drawn like that, even though it's actually a diamond crossing with a single slip for platform 1. So there's a couple of little gotchas there, but the basic gist of it is most trains that are reversing will stop on platform 3, some on platform 4. They will change to a class 5 train, and they will go to one of a number of places. There are 3 main places that they'll go to, the first of which here, 5 November 11 is up here, and this will be on the timetable. You see where it says like the BYD. If it says the down relief, then you take it all the way to signal 118, and from here it can get back into any of these platforms, or indeed any of those. And note, you'll need to use the shunt signals for some of these, whereas that is a main signal, so you won't need to if you're going to the down relief. The second place is the up relief, which is all the way over here to the limit of shunt signal, and that's because if you look, you can't actually go onto here, this line here, number 1 relief, the wrong way, because there's no signal to send it to. But there is a signal here, the number 2 limit of shunt, and that leaves the train behind signal 221. So it's no point just going to here to 690, because there's no signal going back the other way. So go all the way to limit of shunt, which again, it looks far on here, but it's not actually that far in real life as far as I understand. And then the third place, that like this one here, 5F11, you can see platform is BYD, which stands for Brickyard Sidings. So similar kind of idea, using shunt signals, just send it all the way to this exit signal. And you can see here that you have these little track locations, because even though there are no track circuits at the minute, 5F11 is about to go in. But if I bring up this, I don't think anything is in Cardiff West. Oh, it is 5N11 is West Junction. I'm not sure where that one is, 5N11. But I tend to use either these little locations here, or of course you can add a sticky note, and that says, right, leaving platform 3 at 58, so it's not actually ready to go yet. I've put that there ready for the next train to go into the Brickyard, so that means that that's 5N11 up there. Some of these you can put train descriptions on, some of them you can't. So in that case, because I know it's going to come back into platform 0, it's on the down relief at the minute, then I just dump it straight into platform 0, and that's how I remember which one it is. So not great, but anyway. That's all of that part. Sending out a train this way, if you've got the 4th panel, the level crossing panel disabled, then just leave all of these set to auto. I haven't need to use this down goods loop yet, And but as again with all trains, if you've got a freight train, always worth clicking on it, see if it's booked to stop anywhere. Some of them of course are stopped for crew changes, and if they have a crew change at Miskin, then you need to put it in a down goods loop, otherwise it's going to block the main line, and the passenger trains are not allowed to use the goods loops, so they'll just get stuck behind it. But for the most part, you signal it into here, and at that point all the rest of these signals are all autoed, so I don't have to worry about anything beyond there. The only place that we do sometimes use is this down relief here to put a freight train onto. So there are a reasonable number of trains that carry on from Cardiff towards Bridgend. Not millions, but a fair few. So when you have your freight train coming through, again you've got space here to bring it onto the down main, because you won't have an overlap running into this route here, which is great. And if you find that again there's either a booked stop at the West Junction, or it's running a bit early, a bit late, and you're worried it's going to get in the way of your passenger train, then you just pop it up. It goes up this line, I believe, and then into here and all the way to here. But be careful, because until the train has stopped at signal 120 for I think it's 20 seconds, you can't set this route across here, because this signal requires an overlap which goes onto the main line. So just be aware of that. Don't get scared. There's a few times when you try and set a route and it doesn't work, and because that bit doesn't light up, it's not obvious why. But what that means is wait for the train to stop. It has a countdown timer then, just to make sure the train's definitely stopped, and I think, like say, it's 10 or 20 seconds, after which you can set that route, and then it will work fine. So nothing much else about the station that's unusual. I'll talk about this part in a minute, because that is the only part that's unusual. Not really getting very much in the Cardiff Canton Depot's outlet road. I think there are like 2 trains a day at like 11:30 at night, so you don't really use this hardly at all. And I'm not sure if that's because it's the traction maintenance depot. Maybe it's only used for a couple of light locos or something, whereas of course nowadays, this is the 2000s era, these are mostly HSTs, multiple units and that kind of stuff, so they go in a different entrance. This branch, we'll see, comes onto the Taff Panel, so we'll have a look at that. There isn't a lot of traffic here. There is one very strange HST which actually goes from platform 4, goes around the sort of Ninian Park loop and comes back out here. I really don't know why. All it does seem to do is adds 5 minutes to the journey for no obvious reason. But again, always important with all of these, until you learn enough about the simulation, to just check on them, and is there anything weird, because there might be a good reason that you're not aware of why it needs to go that way. It might be timing, it might be route learning, or whatever. So that's that. Now, the Taff Panel is the one that probably takes the most effort. And that's just because it's so unbelievably busy. You've got trains coming down here, you've got trains coming down here, you've got a shuttle train between Cardiff Bay and Queen Street, you have a lot of trains from here carry on down the Barry line, some to Penarth and some off towards Barry and beyond, and then you've got the trains come back the other way. Some trains here actually terminate at, like this one, terminates at Cardiff Central, turns into a class 5 train, and you can see what this one does is it basically gets out the way, so it goes down the loop here rather pointlessly in my opinion, goes all the way to Ninian Park and then comes all the way back again after another couple of trains have come through platform 6, goes into platform 6 and then forms a working going back the other way. It seems a bit of a waste, because it's kind of a long way to go just to come back the other way. It's not like it needs to turn around the triangle or anything. I don't see why, they couldn't maybe put it straight into signal 6, 7, 8 and just hold it on the relief line. I don't know, maybe I'll get in the way. So most of this is about getting this traffic flowing. Now, it's relatively regular, so what you'll learn is that the 2D and the 2C trains both go up the Caerphilly line, so their exit point is Heath Junction. The M's, the A's go up towards Radia, so you'll see that on their Llandaff and Radia on their timetables. So none of these are really autoed properly. You just spend most of your time clicking through. And the other thing that's a bit naughty around here is that some of these routes you can't just set them like a normal route like here, where you can say, well, I can just bang that across, and then I don't want to do that anyway actually, because that's not going up that way. Now that I've probably screwed up my simulation, you can't always do that. If you do that here while this still has a route set on it, then basically that signal will stay red even when the train finally clears that signal. I'm not sure whether it'll eventually go green or if it's some funny little bug, but usually I'll just cancel it, set it again, and it immediately goes green. But there are some weird timing rules in place on the circuits here, so just be a little bit aware of that. And sometimes when it's really busy, it's a bit frustrating because you're waiting for the train to go past that signal and it seems to be taking forever. So you just kind of got to bear with it, and you just forever until you get used to it. The P, fortunately, are the Penarth trains, so that's easy enough to remember. They go up here. The ACI will automatically change the code back, usually to a D, and then you can see the train comes back the other way. Another gotcha, you can't set that route while there's a route set out of the loop here, because that signal is too close to the junction. So be careful you don't set that all the way through to here, then you try and set that and it's not going to work, and you're going to, oh no, and then you'd either have to wait for that train to get there, or you're going to have to cancel that signal down early, which is then probably approach locking, more penalties, more delays, and maybe waiting 2 minutes for it to go green. So some of these you're just going to have to learn by doing it. Most of these trains coming this way will go straight ahead and will carry on all the way up here to one of these two. Occasionally they'll do something special, so there are a handful of trains a day that might go from here down here into platform 4 or something at Cardiff Central, and like I've said, there are trains like this one that stop here, become a class 5 train, go down here round the loop to Ninian Park, either platform, whatever you like, and then come back again up the loop and then back into platform 6. So a little bit fiddling. There are only, I think, 2 trains an hour, one in each direction, that come up this way. But what you need to remember, again, we've got this little section of single line here that they both use. So generally, the train that's going all the way to Radia via Ninian Park has to go down here first. And if you notice that when you go from this signal across here, you're going up the down line basically, and then you cross over just before Ninian Park. So you have to be careful not to create a gridlock. If you put, say, this train into this signal and then you allow this train to come to that signal, you've then got a standoff, and you're going to have to reverse one of the trains, and you don't want to be doing that. So usually this one goes all the way through and over into Ninian Park before you need to set signal 303. So don't worry when the approach lights up and there's a train there. You've generally got 10 or 15 minutes before that train's actually going to get to Ninian Park. So the train that's going up first, then the train that's coming the other way. Haven't used that yet. This is that funny little loop that goes back down towards Bridgend. So there are occasional freight trains, like I say, the HST that comes up here, goes along here, and then back down the branch again. Don't really know why, but hey, that's just how it works. So that's there, not used very much. Goods loops occasionally. You'll get a goods train. If it's running to time, it should be fine because it's so busy down here anyway. Most of these trains are stopping everywhere, so there's no exact sort of high speed running or anything like that. But you might want to use the down goods loop. There's definitely at least one train that's got a booked stop in here, so again, always check your freight trains. The loop here, if you need it, I'm not sure if I've used that. Sometimes maybe a Sandite train or something. Which then brings us to the last part of this introduction, which is this whole smorgasbord of strange transfers. And again, this is based on the real panel. The real panel would have one person controlling platform 6 and 7 of Cardiff Central. The reason being quite simply that the trains coming down here can only actually get into platform 7. They can't even get to platform 6, and they certainly can't get into any of the other platforms down here. So they've obviously decided it makes more sense for the person controlling these lines to control 6 and 7. And then the mainline trains are on platforms 0 to 4 because there's no platform 5 for some reason. And so you've got this sort of pass off, and there are two different ways that you can do this. So one of the things that you need to know is that these two here are extremely busy. So this is where your multiple units are coming out of Cardiff Canton Depot. So they come out of here, you get a phone call from the TMD saying, you know, permission to enter, and you say yes. Usually takes a minute or two for it to arrive at the signal here. Most trains will stop at the signal for a minute or so before they're ready to proceed. So you'll see it here, and it'll give you time to click on it. Am I going to platform 6, platform 7? Am I going to Riverside, etc., etc.? Work out where you're going. You can obviously bring it out to signal 639 straight away if you want to, because again, we're not really using number 2 inlet or the outlet very much, so not too worried about those two. And in the opposite direction, when you get trains going to Cardiff Canton E and C, this is where they go, that exit signal right there. So again, it's pretty straightforward. So the two modes that you have depend on what you're doing. If you're simply passing a train off to the other panel, let's say it's going towards Newport, then all you do quite simply is set a route. Right, let me unpause this because this will make more sense if I do this. Let's unpause it. Set a route from a signal like here through to say, oh sorry, I've obviously got something blocked up here. That train's leaving, so let's just wait for that train to leave a second, and we'll demonstrate that happening in a second. Yeah, now that I've made it slow, it's going to take forever, isn't it? Let's just speed it up a little bit. So typical, isn't it? If I'd have planned this a bit better, it might be a bit... Wait for that train to get all the way out. There's probably a whole load of stuff waiting to happen here that I'm not... I won't save this, I guess I don't really care too much. Let's shove it along a bit. Just want to get that all the way out the way. So basically it's in the way currently of these lines that come through here. So let's just do that for a second. We'll pop this towards 4, why not? Right, so the first way, as mentioned before, is we can go from here, and let's say we point into the crossover point E. Now this signal won't go white at this point, and that's because I've only set half a route, if you like. So if I was just doing that, obviously in real life I'd be sitting next to this person. I'd say, oh, I've just sent you a train on E, and then they have a red arrow, and when they use their red arrow to set the second half of the route, a couple of things happen. These red arrows will go white to show that the route's set, at least I think they will eventually. Yeah, that goes white. And then now that the entire route is set, you can see here that this signal also goes white as well, just as it normally would, and then the train can go through. So that's how you do it, as effectively a game of two halves. But notice if you cancel two halves of a route, you have to cancel it twice. Now the second one, which is a bit weirder, is I'm going to need to get this out of the way. I think 5T14. So that's the one that's going down to Ninian Park. I'll just get it out of the way. That's probably waiting to leave at some point. So if I want to go from this signal 323, 641 or 639 all the way to anywhere off the back of this, so that is platform 6, platform 7 or Riverside, you'll notice here that the only way to get to those is via B here and via C here, which goes to B underneath the covers. Now I can obviously send it to C and then say, oi mate, can you do the other half? And the person at the other side could go C into B, and they could do it that way. But that's a bit of a faff, and actually we can do it in one move. But what we would have to do is we'd request that slot effectively, which is like permission to cross his territory. Now when they do that, then this signaller just hits, I think, oh, did I have to hit the button first? Is it just because it's really slow? I don't normally press the sorry, I don't normally press the request button. Right, can I do that? No, I thought you just... Let's forget the request a second then. It might be because the slot has possibly been used. Oh, it's possibly because that train has only just arrived, so we need to wait for. There we go. So let's just cancel that second. Let's try that again. If I hit the request button here, this would be, you know, somebody going, oh, they want the slot. So I can hit ignore the phone. I hit F, which is like a ground frame, free the slot if you like. And then once I've done that, you can see those end buttons have gone off. That's now flashing, which is basically like saying they're offering you the slot. What I can then do is I can click from my relevant signal all the way through. I can't do it here because this has actually got signal set to it. Oh, this is going to be really annoying now. Yeah, let's just tell these guys to shut up for a second because it's a bit annoying over my phone ringing. 2J, when's 2J leaving? Is it going to be soon? 56.5. Yeah, that'll leave in a second. This is one of those sort of gotchas which you find where it say, you know, you're not allowed to do that because you're not allowed to call on a train into that platform. But it's kind of annoying because I don't want to call it onto the platform. What I want to do is just set it up. Right, so there you go. I'll be quiet. Yeah, I'm not going to save this. So you can see here what I've done is once I've set that route, it's allowed me to do that in one go once that train left the station. The slot rounder has now gone solid white to effectively say the slot is in use. And then what would happen is once the train's gone through, that route would close down just like every other route. But then the slot still needs to be freed up again by right-clicking on this. So if I unpause it, I haven't actually got a train going in there. So let's just cancel that a second. And cancel that. Yeah, it's kind of broken a bit because of because I didn't have a train closing it down for me. But at that point, if I then right-click F, it goes back to where it was before. Oh, go away. Yeah, you can see how quickly it goes haywire if you're not listening to people. So yeah, so that's the last complicated bit. Let's stop that noise. That's the last complicated bit. Now remember, it is from this one, because although it looks like you could go up onto here, that is actually the down line only. The up line and both exits or entrances, whichever, from Canton TMD, all of them need to go via C to B if they're going into platform 6. Like I say, you can do it in two halves. The problem with that is you have to cancel it down in two halves, or you can request a slot. You don't have to request it. You could just go, if you're playing with one player, just scroll along and, you know, left click the F button to give you the route available and then set it across. The other thing that you might find quite useful is the number keys. So you can use the numbers 1 to 9 to get you all the way across the simulation. So particularly things like sort of the station, you hit 3 and you're straight to the station to deal with stuff, or 1 if you've got something at one of the freight line terminals like that one, you can see it's waiting to come out, whatever. So using the number keys as well. But the general thing is it's not massively hard, it's just really busy. So it would definitely be a fun one to chain to one of your mates on a local area network, or do an online one if you prefer it that way. And like I say, it chains to Newport and Swansea as far as I know, as long as they're running comparable timetables. The last thing I didn't really mention is this Cardiff Bay to Queen Street. So far there's a slight weird bit in the morning because most of the trains coming down here will stop on platform 2 at Queen Street. There is one in the morning that stops on platform 3 for no obvious reason, but it does, so just be aware of that. But once the Cardiff Bay train comes in here, it basically shuttles backwards and forwards, and although it will automatically change the code, so it's S when it goes back towards Queen Street and it's B when it goes back towards Cardiff Bay, but what it doesn't do is automatically set these signals. So it's just another job that you're constantly going, let's set that through to there, and then once it gets there, you're going to have to set the route back again to platform 3, constantly checking is this the one that's going to platform 3, or is it going to go maybe platform 2 and go back into the depot? I don't know how long that train shuttles backwards and forwards, because I'm only up to 10 o'clock. But yeah, just another hassle. So plenty of fun, plenty of things to do, very busy. Definitely keep you on your toes and definitely make you age quickly. But otherwise, yeah, a good bit of fun, and a lot of very hard work went into this. A lot of custom special functionality went into this to mimic the old Powerbox panel. So congrats to developers on that. But otherwise, any questions about this sim, I might be able to answer them. Please put them in the comments. Otherwise, I shall see you in the next video.